All I heard was the business licenses are moving. And I think that the issue was how we're going to make sure that we get a smooth transition. And last time they talked about what database they're going to use to find businesses that aren't licensed. And my guess is that you probably have more resources than the clerk might have. Just because of where you're located.
Well, and I spent 2 years as the small business specialist, and I was literally boots on the ground to the businesses. Yeah, I mean, I can speak to the programming side of it and like the functionality in terms of like the finance part of it. I'll leave completely up to you.
I don't have a laptop this time. I've never sat through a callback before, so I'm not sure what to expect.
We got a new attorney.
Yeah.
Her name is Shannon.
Before 5 o'clock.
Yes. Yeah, you probably should.
Hey, Mr. Moore, how are you?
Can buy happiness.
Am I supposed to?
can't turn them off.
What's the push?
That's just, doesn't do anything.
Okay.
Just makes you feel better.
Yeah. You don't see me. That's looking at the attorney way out there.
What you been up
So
to?
you're getting your roof done, that's good.
Yeah, I gotta come down, pull another permit for site. Then I gotta find.
Good too. Oh, I guess if another person's doing it, then you do need to do that.
Well, I ain't even found anybody yet.
Okay. Well, is it that 2-story?
Yeah,
You got all the materials?
not yet. And you know, I still write it down.
Okay.
Yeah. 19 square, do the garage and the house.
Oh, yeah. No, we're just getting prepared for an open house for my son. So we're gonna have it up north. One of my cousin's wives wanted it up there, I think just so.
They were here sometime.
She wouldn't take it no for an answer. It's like, listen, I mean,
We got one of them Sundays.
we could do our own thing, but your mother would have wanted it. Well, maybe. She wouldn't have, So I'm sure it's just so it's closer, so my dad can attend. Whatever. So that's what will be next weekend.
My job today was undercover off the pool. My grandkids yesterday were bitching on the storm.
Oh, because it was 85 and you still had her covered. Yeah, you know. Well, that's pretty good. Yeah, it's work having a pool. It's money. Every year.
Hard work.
Every year.
Chemicals shot up this year though.
Did they?
They only buy
So
one
what
time
does
a
it
year.
cost to open the pool?
About $70.
In about what? 10 hours? Work, messing around, cleaning, and vacuuming.
It's
Okay.
crystal clear.
Already was?
Yeah, and I just pulled it off. It's crystal clear.
I'll be there. Okay.
I gotta put like 2 inches of water in it, but other than that. But I just pulled the cover off and it rained like it's not.
Oh yeah. Might not have to, but only in the morning. Right.
Ding-a-ling told me to bring her meeting today. So I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, it's
Yeah. Budget.
money.
Hey, first one. I see you.
Bitch about this fucking open fire.
What, to have open
Oh,
burn?
no, I don't want it.
Right, well, there isn't any.
They're
Not-
they're trying to pass it.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, can you imagine that now? How much worse it would get?
Well,
16 open windows.
now, I don't know if it was ever legal, but I know when we were little kids, we had a burn barrel in the backyard, right there at that house I'm in. But that was in the 60s. There's no open burn allowed in the city. And that's part of fire. But you're right. Oh, I didn't bring glasses. What a fool.
Oh, no, you know.
Oh.
Basically says you can burn, preferred burning towards charcoal.
We need to actually go out
But you have to.
office here, 'cause I don't want you to think I'm coming against you.
If you want to burn leaves and all that, you gotta get a burning permit.
Okay, which they won't give out,
I know.
as far as I'm aware of.
Yeah. You know me, I ain't gonna come down unless my
Yeah. What does that word mean? I mean, I know what it says.
Oh, the pavement, the roads.
Oh, yeah, it was a planning and development.
So,
Can't burn on pavement.
And this is a
Can't burn
callback,
on a
yeah.
road.
Yeah,
so you can burn in your yard.
yeah.
That's how people will take that.
Okay, so deputy chief is gonna be answering for the chief then. Okay. Okay, and we can just move it. Okay, you ready? I don't need a little gavel. I've never been a gavel person. So I'd like to call these, this is a callback meeting for our budget hearings. And the date is Monday, May 20th. The time is 5:08. We do not do a roll call. These are informal meetings. So I guess we'd like to start, if anyone would like to start first. We have Planning and Development. I see Tyler Bailey, Mr. Moore, and I see Mike Ryder. Who would like to start?
I will.
Go ahead,
Is
Mr.
there
Ryder.
any questions for me?
I do have questions for you.
Okay.
I do. And I don't know if Emily would be, and maybe you would know, with your department, she did send out the letters stating about, you do inspections.
That I can?
Nope, I know you do them in your department, but they sent out 100 letters stating they would be doing inspections. And the inspections, they sent out 100 letters, they would be doing 60 inspections per week, is what they stated, which would be the rental properties. And so rental inspections come through your department. One of the concerns with, I know you've dealt with the landlord association a lot, with these fees. I'd never seen the letter to come out. Are we targeting for safety inspection, or is it you just bringing up this department, your inspection department up to speed?
Did you ask if we were tardy with the letters?
Yeah, there was 100 that went out. She
No,
said,
these are just courtesy letters, actually.
okay, is that what they are?
Yes, because everybody, when a new ordinance is implemented, the public doesn't know. Now, people in that business of rental properties ought to know. You know, they should keep up with stuff like this. But we'll send out a letter with the best information we can collect. Is this a rental property? And we'll send you the letter saying, listen, you have so many days, come in and get it registered, or if it's already registered, pay for your inspections. Bottom line is you need compliance on a home.
Okay, and I get that, because I'm getting overwhelmed with calls about the letters going out.
They're not understanding the letters?
They hadn't been receiving them, because for a time, they did not get them. And so I don't know if the city needs to do a press release on them, but the question was, do they feel that they're getting them because of safety, or they're just using it as a revenue?
The only reason they're getting a letter is they have failed to do one or both required items in the ordinance, the rental ordinance, which is register the property so we know who owns it in case somebody has a complaint on a given house. I call the owner. We let them know. Give them a chance to fix whatever may be the issue.
How
If there
many
really is an issue.
Right. How many, so every 3 years, they have to pay the $475, is that correct?
That's not correct.
Okay, so every three.
Depending on what you own, a single-family home, initially, if I bought one yesterday, and I go in and register it today, I'm paying a registration fee of $250. That's one time. As long as I keep that house in my name.
And then the $275 is for.
$225
$225.
is every 3 years.
So at the onset of it, they're paying for a new property, like you said, you just did yesterday, it's $475.
Yes, but if I had sent you, if you bought that house 6 months ago, and I sent you a letter 31 days ago, I'll say, that courtesy letter, and you failed to comply with that, that cost is gonna be more when you register it. There's gonna be a late fee attached to it.
How much is your late fee?
For a single-family home, that's $450.
So $450 for a late fee, is that per year or?
It's just just that one time.
Okay, how do you determine if someone owns a home, if it's a rental property? What if they own a home and,
It's challenging
okay,
because, you're not required to record a deed in the state of Michigan,
That is
for
correct.
one. So I take every bit of information I could find to determine ownership. Whether it be a permit that may have been pulled last year, they'll have information on there. Or, I'll go through assessments. That's my best legal path, is assessments. Because you are required to provide that information to assessments by law. So, does everybody? No.
no.
But, so we just do the best we can with all the information that I can get from the cities, from our inside City Hall.
How, I know your department was understaffed. Is it, how is your staffing now?
Well, we're getting all the jobs done. We're missing a couple inspectors right now to illness.
How many, is it COVID or virus or something, or?
I'm sure
Is
it's
it temporary?
something. It's not, I'm not,
Okay,
they're medical issues, I'll just say that.
okay. And so how much does, and I don't have it, I just got this part. How much, Mr. Moore, you might be able to know, how much does the city bring in fees or as in fines? Do you have that on you don't have your laptop? Or tell me.
Yeah, I wouldn't have that information. I mean, we could probably track it in a report, but we don't have
How many
that.
inspectors do you have now?
So, are we just talking about rental?
No, let's talk
If you're talking-
inspectors,
Everybody in our
yes.
office.
Yeah, if you're talking about rental license, year to date, they have $423,000 of rental fees
For this year,
for this year.
okay. So how many inspectors do you have?
All right, we have 3 that just are doing rentals.
Okay,
One does a lot of other code enforcement. We have 2 building inspectors, 1 rental, just hired another part-time rental.
so you're really building your capacity up,
Well,
and, because it used to be
as
lower.
people want an inspection right now,
They do.
not tomorrow, God
They
forbid, we all of a sudden, so trying to accommodate everybody's needs. It seems like we get more and more
So what is,
pressure to get things done in a day.
yeah, people, there is a tendency that when they pay that fee, they expect within 24 hours.
Yeah, even if they have owned it for 10
Yeah.
years, all of a sudden they want it tomorrow. So that doesn't happen. They're gonna get in line. For the people that have come in and scheduled it correctly, that, because our schedules don't just fill up that day. People are already scheduled, well in advance. So we
Right.
get them in the best we can.
Are your master fee, your fee schedule, are yours comparable to other municipalities?
I didn't look those up and compare them,
Okay,
but that's where most all of our
Oh,
fees
they fall in the line.
are from other municipalities to stay in the.
All right,
They
excuse
certainly
me,
don't compare with Ann Arbor.
excuse me, Councilwoman. How much time do we have for this callback? Because I know we have 2 tonight, correct? How much do we have for this callback? She didn't give time. What time are the police expected to be up here, or are they already here?
He's here already.
Okay,
You got just the deputy chief.
all right. What time did this meeting start? 5:05. Okay. All right, I'm sorry, continue, Councilwoman.
I'm sorry, Mike, and a lot of the things I generally just call your department anyways.
I know.
which just works out for me. So here's my other concern, the furnace part, which I was trying to wrap my head around this. When the inspections come out, and I agree, furnace and hot water heaters should be inspected. So some of the landlords are stating it's not consistent with, they'll have to do maybe have it inspected, to have a furnace company come and say the furnace is okay. Other times they have to have a reinstallation of a furnace?
Well,
A reinstall, but they're still using the same furnace, and it's running them about 2,000 or 2,500 is what
to
what
put
they're.
a new furnace in?
Nope, they're saying to use the same furnace that they have.
Okay.
That they're getting, when the inspectors are coming out, and that they're being told, okay, the company has to come out, disconnect everything, still using the same furnace, but it's costing them 2,000 to 2,500 on an average.
So if you needed a furnace in your house,
And if you got any free ones, send it my way.
let's just say, okay? You hire a company, you get it put in. The house you own and live in, if you think you can install it yourself, you can pull that permit yourself. So we're talking about rental houses. We'll just stick with those. So you can't pull your own permit. I can't obtain my own permit, a permit to put a furnace in on a house I don't live in, even if I own it. So if I put one in without getting a permit, okay, which happens all the time, it's not a big surprise, but then our inspector shows up. They don't care how shiny that furnace is. Is it installed correctly? Is it vented properly? So never is one of our inspectors is gonna tell you, you gotta disconnect this furnace, put it back in. Now, a company may, if it was completely installed incorrectly, because if you didn't pull a permit, we give you the chance, hey, go find a contractor, tell them you put a furnace in with no permit for whatever reason. But them darn people down at building inspections want that thing looked at, they want it inspected, they want it installed properly and inspected. If they come in, if I was that furnace guy and they come into your house and I go, wow, I need to disconnect this whole thing for whatever reason, then that price would certainly go up. If it was installed correctly and I come in and I look it all over and the venting looks good, it's up off the ground like it should be, it has its clearances like you're supposed to have, you certainly, I'm not, unless I'm a shyster contractor, I'm not gonna tell you I gotta take it all the way out. I'm just gonna go down to the city, grab a permit, call for the inspection, because I've already looked at it and I know it's installed right.
So
Do you follow that?
No, I completely understand.
Okay.
I understand, but this is one of the issues that, getting a lot of calls.
Yeah, so that's, the only reason anybody would have to uninstall a furnace is if it was completely inadequate for that home.
Okay, and then another question, is your department, because you used to only take cash and checks, are you on a credit card system?
No.
Okay, and so people cannot pay online for these services?
Correct.
Are you looking to get online, because that just makes sense?
Yes.
Because we are so antiquated that it's unbelievable. And we are in a don't carry cash, society now. And
Do you
with,
need some?
listen, you can always donate to Tanya
No,
Brown.
we're working
and
on
throw
it.
that free furnace in there too. But,
Yeah, we're working on that so we can take credit card at the counter.
yeah, and that's important. So are you out of state? Are you looking into it? Is it something that's going to
Yes.
happen in a relative? Okay, Tyler's shaking his head. So
No.
you're Emily tonight, correct then, Tyler?
Oh, not quite.
Not
Still
quite, but
Tyler,
you're filling in.
Yes, we have been working, Amanda's been spearheading the online payments, and so we will be able to have that hopefully soon, where people, because we work with them, vendors all the time where they're
Yeah.
coming in, like sign companies from out of state, for example, have to mail checks in.
Yeah.
So this way we'll be able to accept online payments.
Yeah, it's difficult, I think, for your department even doing business, and it is a deterrent for people doing business. I'm even say even in the county, because even the county is just now getting online to pay for certain services. But I think that needs to be done, because when I did with Jim Durian, that was 2020 in your department. I was going through your receivables, it was like $1 million, that was taken in cash and checks. And that to me was bothersome, because, it was too much of an easy way for people when we look at, when audits come, that money could have been, removed, you're doing over the counter. I didn't think it was a very secure way. And so, but when you're paying online, you're able to track it with credit cards, and people use credit cards. That's just what people do.
There'll be some challenges, but
What about even wiring money, Tyler?
Oh, sorry.
What types of forms of payments are we looking at it's going to be?
I might be able to answer that better than Tyler.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
We're looking at expanding the options so that things like Google Pay, Apple Pay, a lot of the Cash App type things, we're looking at trying to get those in place as well, because quite honestly, that's how people are moving money these days.
They are. So you're looking at Google Pay, Apple Pay, I guess Cash App, then it'll be Zelle. You're going to take credit card. And so you're not going to just be a check and cash. And that's good. Mr. Moore, do you have an amount of time, that it's being worked on? Is it going to be in the BSNA system?
Yes, it will.
Okay, it's going to be in BSNA. Okay. All right, I will yield my time so that my colleagues can ask questions.
Thank you. So, looks like y'all will be out of here in a reasonable amount of time, because I am the only other person with questions. It's going to be specifically for you. July 1st, and I did not get the original budget that was presented before council because I was not here for that particular budget hearing. And so all of my questions are just going to be geared toward business licensing. That you are taking that over in July, correct?
Correct.
Just give me a little bit of background about what that is going to entail.
So that will be in terms of like the programming of like day to day, you come in as a new business owner, you want to register your business with the city? Is that the?
Yep, so what portion of the budget is allocated to the business licensing division? And whoever can answer that.
I'm not sure I know that's a good question. When the operation was in the clerk's office, I believe you had 2 people handling that. I suspect we'll have 2 people working on that in business and community services as well.
You said there will be 2 people
Right.
working on that. And I can't really speak to how many licenses were renewed or while it was under the city clerk's office. But my question is, with the portion of the budget that you have allocated, so are you going to get those 2 people? No, because
No.
they answered that the other day. So are you going to have to hire 2 new people for this?
Yes.
Okay, and what would their titles be?
The job description is still, we're working on it
Okay.
with their union president and our HR team. But
Okay.
I believe it will be a licensing technician.
Okay.
It could be licensing inspection technician.
All right, and well, part of their position, because it is my understanding that the way that the business licenses are currently handled is every license that is already on file. So those are the only ones who get letters. But we have a whole lot of businesses that are currently operating, and I'm not sure if they are operating in a legal capacity or if the city is even aware that they are operating. I know at one point we were told that we kind of still drove around to find and see what businesses are or are not operational. And so my question becomes, and we're going to put the letter part to the side now, how are we going to determine how many operational businesses that we have in the city of Flint? Not even legally yet, but how many are we going to determine are actually operating in the city of Flint?
We're going to them. So right now, our new small business specialist is actually cataloging all of our commercial corridors. That's where we're going to start. Mm-hmm. Previously, prior to being the deputy director of business services, I was the small business specialist. Mm-hmm. And I could say, not to sound too arrogant, but any semblance of success I had in that role was going to the businesses. Mm-hmm. A lot of the small businesses in Flint, which the SBA defines as fewer than 100 employees, they are owner, operator, accountant, they're a daycare provider, they are
Right.
doing more jobs than just one, and did not have the capacity to come and meet me at my office hours here, or my office hours at Burston, or at 100K. So I physically went to their businesses and wrote a profit and loss statement while they were doing side work, or helped them write a business plan while they were, prepping for a big catering gig. So that is where we are starting. So the small business specialist right now is doing a virtual audit of all of these corridors, and once he is done with that, understanding like what is there, the ownership status, is it operational, then they will actually be going out on the streets, talking to business owners, hearing their concerns, what challenges do you have, what opportunities would you like to see, and then they will then work in tandem with our corridor improvement professionals, who will essentially be able to help us establish new TIF districts. So a lot of these commercial corridors can have a diverse funding stream. So if there is a big infrastructure project that could, impact their day-to-day sales, they have this separate fund through a TIF district that they can rely on for maybe zero interest loans or micro grants or facade improvement programs, beautification efforts. So it's going to be very organic in terms of how we're going to capture that data.
Right, and so will you still be doing that, or the two licensing technicians, will they be going around doing that?
It's going to be a whole class effort.
Okay,
I won't be going door to door as much, but between the licensing tech, small business specialist, and the two corridor improvement professionals, I'm fairly confident that we can have a pretty good.
And Mr. Moore, did you tell me how much of the budget was allocated for business licensing?
I'm not sure it's broken out. Yeah, I don't think, it's not broken out separately. I do that we budgeted 2 positions for that. And I suspect the budget, if I remember the budget when it was prepared, it was very similar to what they had when it was in the clerk's office. We used that as the model for developing the budget. So it's probably just about the same as what the clerk's office had.
Do you know how much the clerk's office had?
Not off the top of my head, but I can get that for you.
Okay. And again, you're saying you're going to do commercial corridors. Now, we know that there are some residential areas, which we know they are not zoned for, that will have businesses operating. So what is the plan? One, how long is it going to take? How many man hours do you think it's going to take for you to figure out how many? I know that there's already a list of businesses that you do know are operating. How long is it going to take for you to figure out how many businesses are actually operating in the city?
Well, apart from pulling data that Mike and his team has and working with assessments as well, we have enough internal data to give us a pretty good idea, but that would also depend on, are we counting at-home businesses or people who have a business but it's entirely online, but is it registered? Is it registered to their home address or to a P.O. box? I would say, realistically speaking, $6 months would be fantastic.
Right, and I think you just brought up something else that it's probably going to be further down in my questioning about, because a lot of people do now have, businesses that they operate off the internet or solely off their computer. And so how are we going about, and that's going to be interesting too, to figure out how we're going about licensing with that kind of stuff. Not my question right now, though. What measures are in place to ensure the efficiency and timely processing of business license applications?
So we will be working with the clerk's office in transitioning the roles, not the people, but the roles to this division. We will also be utilizing a new CRM platform. So Quali was recently approved by this body, and that will help us bring in to what, Councilwoman Burns was referencing in terms of not having a lot of robust technology. This will not only be a public-facing system that will help the business owners either start a business, expand their business, potentially sunset their business, or help them navigate to internal partners that they would need to work with at City Hall. At the same time, it will be a tracking system similar to like a Salesforce, if you're familiar, that our team will be able to use to track. But it's going to be built out, it's unique as opposed to a Salesforce model, because this is going to be designed entirely for our department and the city of Flint. So it's not like a one-size-fits-all technology. This is being built with the people who will be using it every single day.
Very familiar with Salesforce, have to use it daily, so good luck with that. I know you said it's not
I'm
quite
very
that,
excited.
yeah.
This one's a little different. It's much more user-friendly.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, and so that answered my question about technologies that's going to streamline the process. How does this budget support customer service efforts for business owners applying for licenses? Sometimes, people have run into snags where they feel like certain things may take a little bit more time. So, and this includes assistance, outreach, and communication. I know you talked about you used to go there and you would help you specifically, but I know for a fact you have a lot of work that you do very well. And so, is there anything in the budget that's going to help with that process for people applying for licenses, assistance in outreach and communication?
Well, I would say, I don't know if I could point to an item on the budget in particular, but more broadly speaking, by de-siloing our divisions and departments and merging them as a division of business services, we are able to have a customer-centered approach to every single person that walks in, whether they want to add a residential fence or they want to, expand their commercial project that they have on Jord Highway. So just by nature of us all working in tandem with each other does create a much more streamlined, effective way to engage with the general public. In terms of communications, we do work with our communications team, and we will be doing a lot of targeted outreach to different community partners throughout the summer.
Okay. And I know, like with the rental inspections, I know we do that specifically. We're going address by address, so 200s, 400s, 600, all that. So when we talk about with the businesses and sending out business letters, what is the process for that?
It does not exist yet. That's something that we're going to be creating as that comes in. I've talked with colleagues in other municipalities that are similar in scope to Flint, who kind of have been kind enough to lend like their best practices, things that they maybe wouldn't do again, and we're building out our licensing language, which will hopefully be coming before council for your review soon.
And I know there are some interdepartmental things that have to happen here, because obviously a business that is properly licensed, we then have to send out the fire department to make sure that they are passing all of those inspections. Right now we have a lot of businesses operating in Flint that if people were to go in and have some sort of emergency right now, they are not fully prepared for that. So tell me how that communication is going to work interdepartmentally as far as alerting the fire department that this business now needs to have an inspection.
So we've had some great success in our interdepartmental communications with our zoning team. So zoning is a division of business services. Mm-hmm. When we receive a site plan for zoning, it is initially reviewed by one of the zoning coordinators. They then, when it's time to route that out, send it to other departments and divisions. Mike's team is one, fire is another. Realizing that there was kind of a gap in terms of like when the site plan was reviewed to when it was completed was a little too long for my liking, for the applicant's liking. So we created a new routing system that is both digital and paper, where we are able to disperse that information at least to the 6 divisions we work with all of our site plans. Having seen that is fairly effective and has reduced the amount of time it takes from a site plan to be reviewed by close to 80%. In 8 months, it seemed to work for zoning, so I think it could work well for business licensing. So that's going to be the first step that we take.
Okay, awesome. And so I'm just kind of gauging from some of my questions that there's not a specific budget breakdown for certain things. So when we start talking about enforcement of licensing requirements and monitoring compliance, I know you're going to use your CRM to help with that, right? And then what other measures are going to be taken when we talk about if someone is out of compliance or they do not respond to their letter? Is there a certain amount of time they will have to respond to that letter? Once they do not respond to that letter, will the licensing technicians then go out and say, hey, you are currently operating without the proper license, you have X amount of time? Walk me through the steps and the man hours that's going to help me justify the licensing technicians.
So yes, they will have a set amount of time to respond to the letter. That response could be, sending an email, stopping up, giving us a call. Should that not take place, then yes, there will be a second step to that where now it's like, we've alerted you that you're no longer in compliance for these reasons. We need you to come into compliance. If that is then ignored, then that would be where we escalate it to the next step, which would probably be a fee. But that is something that's being built into the licensing languages now.
And so do we know how much the fee will be?
Not yet.
Not yet. How long before we get to the fee step? How many times do they get this call? Because again, what we are noticing in the city, right, is that there are a lot of these departments and things that we could ultimately be paying for themselves, and we wouldn't have to be so grant reliant if we would not allow things to carry on for months and even years. And so my question is, how do we get businesses and business licensing pretty much to that same step, right? Because again, there are hundreds of businesses when I drive around here. And so how long do they get to come into compliance before they get a fee? Is this a one-time fee, or do we do another fee and it escalates? And then after that fee, at what point do we shut the business down? Walk me through those steps.
So that language has not been solidified with the licensing ordinance, and as that gets closer to bringing it before y'all, I can very happily share that. I think in terms of getting people getting their licensing compliant and up to date, a big part of it will just be building value into why a business license is important, why you should be compliant, why it's not just another fee, but why is this ultimately for the benefit of the business. I do not like having outstanding items just kind of dangling in the ether, so I would prefer to have that nipped pretty quickly. And that goes back to your question about communication. That will be something that these folks and myself continue to do, is one, building value and explaining why this is here, and then opening that door to have the conversation.
Okay, and let's stay in this vein. Are there any budgetary plans to adjust licensing fees, or introduce new categories of licenses to reflect the change in our business landscape? Because I know you're very forward-thinking.
Yeah, we will have to, that will be presented as part of the next master fee schedule for approval, but we have businesses that didn't exist when the original ordinance was put in place, right? We have different industries. Food trucks is a great example. When the ordinance was originally written and then was pretty much maintained for decades, food trucks hadn't been invented yet. Well, now they're everywhere, and so we need to have some parameters and some guidelines for best practices to keep people safe. So we now have food truck language. So this will be and should be a living document that evolves with the times.
Okay, and so ultimately the goal should be for all of these departments, especially where we're collecting fees, right? Or where there's a fee that has to be paid in some way, shape, or form to kind of become self-sustaining or at least add to the city's revenue. And so how does the licensing process contribute to the city's revenue, and what portion of the revenue is reinvested into the department's operations? And you can just give me a projection and an idea, because I know that you might not have that answer yet.
Yeah,
What's your goal?
I want all of these positions to be self-sustaining. Mm-hmm. So you are generating enough licensing that is maintaining part of your own payroll. So it will be that will be built into that model.
Okay.
I don't have a direct percent for you, but I can circle back with Phil and his team and Emily and try and get you something a little bit closer to what you asked for.
And I think I kind of know the answer to this if I remember from my time of actually being a city employee, but are there specific programs funded to reduce barriers for startups to provide additional support for minority-owned or disadvantaged businesses?
So yes, Flint is awash in a resource-rich entrepreneurial ecosystem. We exist in partnership with a lot of different groups that seek to assist startups throughout the city. The city just wrapped an SBA grant, that was the Community Navigator Pilot Program. We were the only municipality for the state of Michigan awarded this grant. We were one of two for the state of Michigan. The other was the Community Foundation of Pontiac, and it was a response to COVID and the rise in entrepreneurialism that we saw as a result of people wanting to branch out and start their own businesses. That program has since ended, but we were able to use that as best practices and proof of concept moving forward for a very strong consortium between SIPI, Flint Development Center, 100K Ideas, U of M Flint's Office of Economic Development, the Latinx Center, tons of community partners. So we exist in a system of like referring and collaborating. We don't have one specific program housed out of the city right now, but as a collective, we are actively seeking support mechanisms through funders like the MEDC, the SBA, and different subsidiaries that they have.
Okay, perfect. You actually answered my next two questions with that. And so what metrics or performance indicators are going to be used to evaluate the effectiveness and the efficiency of this process?
Of the licensing in particular?
Yep, business licensing.
One will be the
Just business.
volume of it, but to be quite frank, a lot of this will be measured in not only the rollout of these licenses and what this looks like, but what that looks like 30, 60, 90 days. So what is our engagement like? How are people reacting when they see someone coming in from the city? They know they work as a licensing technician or whatever the title ends up being. But that's gonna be kind of a twofold measure of successes. One, how well are we doing? How many are we capturing? Because when we capture these businesses and get them a license, we will then not have them exist in a silo of you're only working with licensing. We're gonna connect you to the small business specialist or the corridor improvement person or to me or to zoning or to someone on Mike's team to say, okay, well now that we've heard some of your problem areas, who do we have on staff that we can refer you to actually meet those concerns? So that will be the second part of how are we measuring success, and are we seeing the development and the advancement of the small business ecosystem here?
Okay, and then, so we are still reeling from the results of COVID. What happened there, what happened to businesses. God forbid we get another pandemic or for whatever the reason, another economic downturn. Are there contingency plans funded to support businesses during economic downturns or crisis? So do we have anything in place? Because I know obviously during COVID, the state of Michigan kind of stepped in and helped out with those kind of grants, but should this happen again, is the city of Flint prepared in any way? And if we cannot be because of our own funding issues, do you have something that you would like to be put in place and that you would like to budget around to have a contingency plan? Because again, the whole goal in all of this is for Flint to become more self-sustaining and self-supporting.
So I would say yes, but not in a direct if this then that answer. Okay. So by creating a robust division of economic development, we will be able to put systems and plans in place that did not, quite frankly, exist when COVID hit. This was an unknown that I don't think anyone would have projected, a worldwide pandemic. Having already lived through it, we can now put that on our barometer of worst case scenario. So how can we build systems and processes in place so if there is another catastrophic event, we have something in place for that? The corridor improvement plans, for example, are, I think, a fantastic opportunity. Turn Corona Road into a TIF district. Create a funding stream that is just for those small businesses that might exist in our memory. They might exist, but they're maybe struggling a little bit now, but would definitely be impacted if there was another catastrophe. And that could be a catastrophe that is, yes, a COVID-19, or it could be someone accidentally drives their car into the business. Because that happens. Often enough to be of concern. It could be that it is a joint venture and something happens to one of the partners. It could be a family situation. Whatever the myriad of problems that could be, by creating these systems of districts, then they will have their own self-managed funding streams where they can use it where they think is best.
Perfect. You did literally just answer my last question there. Are there specific long-term projects or studies funded? And you just answered that. So July 1st, this comes to you. Walk me through what the first month of July looks like when we begin to talk about businesses and licensing and sending out letters and making sure businesses are properly licensed.
So I would say probably if we are able to post those positions soon, then July 1st, I mean, ideally, we'll probably still be in the throes of interviewing for those folks. And it's just going to be a lot of communicating with the public. If you're getting a surprise letter of who is this, why do I need to talk to this Tyler person, it is going to be a lot of public engagement, building the value of why it's important to have a license, and just kind of explaining a new process to people. It is going to be entirely managing people's expectations, meeting them where they are, and being able to communicate very effectively, ideally succinctly, that this is the process. And I honestly think that will last more than just the first 30 days.
So when can they expect to receive letters from you that they have to make sure that they are properly licensed or come apply for their license?
So I'll be working with the existing licensing staff because I don't want to disrupt the calendar that they currently have, especially if you've had, a business and you have a license and maybe you've budgeted for your year that you've got it every fall or every spring. So I don't want to disrupt things too much that way. So I don't have a concrete answer for you there, but I can always circle back with you after licensing I speak once the ordinance is passed.
Alrighty, perfect. I do not believe any of my colleagues have any more. Did you have anything?
I have a question.
You do have something?
Yeah. So my question, Tyler, I heard you mention about an audit. Can you kind of explain that? You said, was that for like all the business corridors, you guys are going to do an audit to kind of track things? Was that correct?
Yep. So we're doing, it's 2 audits really. One is a digital audit. So what does Google tell us that's there? That is going to be how big is the parcel? What's the parcel number? Who owns it? What does it look like in terms of the actual structure, right? If it is an active business, when did that business open? Because that determines our zoning that we will apply to that business. It could very well be if it's a long-standing business that's been in town for a long time. We'll say like the White Horse, for example, would operate under a different zoning code than say, Flint Trading Company downtown, right? They opened at different times, so different zoning codes apply to them. So you will have a digital audit of what does Google say that we have. We'll then do a physical audit of going there if it is an abandoned building that does not negate its ownership levels. So understanding who owns this parcel. If it is an existing business, part of that in-person audit will be for the small business specialist, licensing techs, and then corridor improvement professional to go in and say like, hi, my name is, insert here, tell me a bit about your business. Where do you have challenges? Oh, you want to resurface your parking lot. That's fantastic. Let's get you in with our zoning team so we can make sure that it's striped appropriately. You have enough safe spaces for you. So that's what the audit consists of right now.
Okay, and my second question is, will you guys be working with the group that's doing the emerging development? I think it was Flint.
Yeah, so I was one of the authors of that, so thank you for passing that. So yes, the Emerging Developer Program is definitely going to be a resource that is very exciting for the city, and it's going to, because we work directly with anyone who wants to go through zoning, we see firsthand how expensive those tools can be to just open a brick and mortar, the amount of parking spaces that you need, what sign qualifications you can have. And having a site plan, an engineer, an architect, getting an Eagle representative, maybe a brownfield consultant, these are very expensive. But at the same time, we don't know what we don't know, right? So that program will be equal parts educating people, but also kind of trying to address the costliness barrier of being able to afford to redevelop blighted, vacant, insert here, buildings.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I heard, Tyler, you share about the value of licensing. That's not necessarily to imply that licensing is an option, is it?
No.
Okay.
No, but, if people buy from folks they like, right? And you also, if you're spending $1 on something, you want to know what it's going towards. And I understand people's hesitation and maybe frustration with another fee, especially if this is a new unlicensed business. Then it's outside of what they've budgeted for the month, the quarter of the year. So when I say add value, it's just kind of explaining and educating them, like, this is why we have a licensing division that now works in this way.
One of the things that Emily talked about when she was here was that the first priority for business licensing is making sure that life and safety are the top priorities, and making sure that the business is safe and the customers are safe, and that side of things.
Okay. So is that something then that there will be an annual, or there is an annual fee around licensing? Good. So if I understand correctly, we're adding new persons as these licensing technicians, and you've identified how many you're projecting or would desire to have?
Desire would be great. I would like 25.
Okay.
You'll probably have 2.
2. Now, I don't believe approval directly to add to FTE comes before this body directly.
That's correct.
That's correct, okay. But indirectly, by way of some approval of budget, it might be factored in. So
That's right.
my question is this, and it really, I think, pertains to budget and dollars and cents. I'm assuming that someone in that leadership team has done a form of analysis that would say, by adding these persons, we would expect that our return on investment for, and we'll just say base salary, not including the fringes and all of that, but someone, I'm assuming, has done analysis to say, if we're paying 2 persons X number of dollars, we're projecting we'll receive in additional licensing X dollar amount.
I think if you were to talk to the mayor, he'd tell you that the first goal was to make sure that the city of Flint was business friendly. Mm-hmm. But in answer to your question, we also believe that we'll find more businesses and we'll license more businesses, and it'll pay for itself.
And it'll pay for itself. Is there, and I heard my colleague sort of reference to it paying for itself and it being somewhat sustainable. Do we have an idea, or can you share with us an idea as to what X dollar amount you project it will return? Because I didn't exactly know where to see it in where it was folded into this particular budget.
Currently, the position is self-sustaining. The operation is self-sustaining. When it was in the clerk's office, it sustained itself. We suspect that by moving it to this office, it's going to be even more sustained. They're going to have more businesses, and they'll more than meet the cost of the operations that they have.
Okay, and part of what I think I heard was, Tyler, part of the way they're going to do that is to do what I've known you to do, as you stated yourself. You'll actually be out in the city identifying in that. And so those persons are going to do that more so. So again, we would assume that there's going to be, again, this greater opportunity to collect the fee. So, I mean, is it that there truly hasn't been an analysis that can give us an idea on a number?
In the last few years, the licensing personnel haven't been able to go out into the field. By going out to the field, we're confident we're going to find more businesses. We'll license more businesses, and it was self-supporting before, they'll be self-sustaining after.
And I understand, Tyler, that you're in the group, and Emily is the lead for that group, and maybe this is a Emily question with maybe what she's projected by way of, again, what she believes to be a reasonable number to anticipate us going out into the field would return by way. And again, and maybe that's just me putting it out there that I would like to maybe hear, and I'll maybe follow up with her directly to just get a feel for, if I'm assuming, and again, this is my first day, my first meeting, but I would assume that someone has looked at numbers to say, if we add a staff person that will actually be able, matter of fact, 2 staff persons that will be able to dedicate 50, 60, 70% of their time out in the field identifying and thereby collecting, what does that look like by way of revenue?
I think we'll have a better idea of what those projections could look like once we have these inventories done. Because when we look at the licensing of businesses, I could say we have 25,000 businesses in Flint, but those are varied, right? That could be like a one-person vendor at the farmer's market who's there 3 days a week, and she's got her main side hustle or her main hustle the other days of the week, you know? That would be a different licensing type than, say, a large-scale auditorium, right? Or an events venue. So it's going to be, it's more finite than that, but I think once we have a better inventory of what businesses do we have that are actively engaged with the city, i.e. open, trying to open, capture them before they sunset or worse, give up, and then kind of collate that, then we could provide a better projection.
Okay. Well, I think I'll stop there. I didn't initially have questions, but as you've been sharing it, it sparked some thoughts, so thank you.
All righty. Well, pretty painless. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank you so much. We're going to close out your call back and welcome the police on up for their call back.
Tyler, keep coming back. Jasper, I think it's a fly in the school.
Good evening.
Hello.
Thank you so very much for joining us. Would you please identify yourself for our new colleagues, please?
Yep, my name is Jeff Ancliffe. I'm the Deputy Chief of Police at the Police Department.
All right, and thank you so very much for being with us this evening. Leanne, I know you have questions. Councilwoman in the 6th Ward, do you have questions for them? Okay, and then Councilman in the 9th Ward, do you have questions for them? Not yet, okay. All right, so then we'll just start off for now and just kind of give everybody 15 minutes. Councilwoman Burns, would you like to start?
Good evening.
And, because I want to make sure I get your title correct. I wish Chief Green was here, but he's not. I know he's probably watching. I'm quite sure, because if he's not here, he's usually making sure he's watching. I did watch the last one, budget hearing. I could not make it to that one, but I did watch it. But there are some of the things that I am concerned about, which I will shoot an email to Chief Green also. One is the calls, 911 calls. It's hot. Public safety plan. I know he's got a lot of plans that he's initiating, and we've discussed those. And I would like to, implementation date. This past weekend was terrible. And not just stating, I know someone got hit by a train. I think that person had a gunshot wound that they later found out. And then I have the party house that's been partying for 2 years, and I believe you went there. They're completely and totally disrespectful. that turned out from the loud music Saturday to fighting in the street to gunshots. And then the gunshots went over into another resident's home, who is a small business owner here in the city of Flint, and it went through their house, right next to where his child would sleep. So my concern is, if we had have had, and I know you didn't have enough police. That is the worst call for people to make, because they're never calling. I won't say never. They're calling because they need you. They need you. They need someone. And this house parties all the time. There's something about that corner, because we had an issue across the street before then at a different house. I understand the recruiting difficulty, and I understand that you do have someone dedicated to recruiting, and it's tough all over. I don't like not having people held hostage. When a senior lady has hit the floor because in the gunshots are rattling off and it's recorded, and she's been there for 45 years, and she's seeing the neighborhood completely turn. I got people selling their homes, Westcomb Street, selling her home, her and her husband, Miss Humphrey. Someone pulled out a gun. And then they've had shootings on Westcomb. They come from that store. My concern is when gunshots go out, we used to have the Tyler CAD system. Are they going out to every agency? I can't believe every agency that night. Gunshots went out. That meant someone showed up. I know we're not on the Tyler CAD system anymore, and I know we don't have that sharing of information. We have come off that. Is there another system that Chief Green has in place of the Tyler CAD system? Because not to have someone available for gunshots, and these people are calling me. I'm calling 911. I'm doing everything I can. I mean, that included, and I felt the frustration when I called even the desk sergeant. The desk sergeant was frustrated. Do we have the sharing of the information so that when gunshots go out, that's the one call somebody should be sent to? Do we have, how is that, when it goes into 911, how is that information go out to other agencies, say the Sheriff's Department, Michigan State Police?
Well, they aired over the city 911 channel. So whoever's monitoring city 911 will hear it.
Okay, and so it's not on their system anymore, where we had, I think it was costing the city approximately $20,000 a year to be on that system. And that was with 99, I think, sworn officers. They go by how many sworn officers. The other highest person on that system is the Genesee County Sheriff, that they had 119 sworn officers, and they were paying 22. But when we have, I can tell you this, I go to the 911, I'm always transparent. It's not working. It's just not working. It's not working with coming off of the system. I had to listen to this lady call me several times, crying and upset. She shouldn't have to live like that. And it's not even the first time. It's not the first time. And I get when officers are busy. I get how the supervision, and I think every chief that we've had I've known, and I have known them. And so when I look at a scene, how are we handling, we have, say, 10 officers at a scene. The threat is gone, and they're not in service, and they stay at that scene. That to me, and talking to, and several of the people who were captains, deputy chiefs, and chiefs have said, why are they still, not, stay till the threat is gone, contain the scene, and then let them go back in service to get those calls. I've seen it. I'm like, and that's I guess the supervision, and I guess maybe it's training. I mean, what is the protocol that we're doing, that the police department is doing?
Well, the on-scene supervisor say at a scene of a shooting, you know, once it's safe and everything's, you know, accounted for, it's up to the supervisor to break officers free and put them back into service.
Right, and I think putting them back in the service, and I'm gonna give an example. Sad tragedy with the 2-year-old, who, you know, that incident. There were 9 police officers there. We knew that the threat was, you know, the parent who was there had already been taken off. There were 9 there to about 6:30 a.m., and then along with 3 detectives at that one street. There was no threat. That was a terrible tragedy that had happened.
What are you basing there was no threat on?
I was there, and I was there with the other. It was roped off already. I was there for probably 12 hours, and the father, they were investigating. The detectives were coming in and out. We knew how the shooting occurred. The scene, I know the scene was a lot to cover. That was throughout the home. But to have those officers out of service when we had 9, you know, what calls are we having that's missing? And I'm not being combative with you, but what I want to say is, if we leave, I'm not saying take them all away. You know, I know much better than that. But if we're leaving, say 3 even, and putting the other 6 back into service, because you still had 3 detectives. There were 3 detectives that were there, and then we had all of the officers. It was roped off. The person, the father with the incident had been, you know, moved away. He was taken down to the jail. Putting these officers back in service. I don't know how quickly, but you said it's up to supervision. I think that's something we probably need to look at, because, like I said, when we get gunshots, you know, and being put on hold, 911 was putting people on hold. These were for other issues. They have called, and 911, you call 911 and you're put on hold. Now, I know in April 29, 2015 is when the 911 center was transferred from the city of Flint over to 911. I know that Chief Green had talked about having an officer at the 911 center. I don't know if that's something when is that going to happen? Do you know?
Nope.
Okay, I think it's a great idea that he came up with, to say, I'm gonna have someone at the 911 center, so that as those calls are coming in, the supervisor from that point can help to dispatch those calls. Residents are leaving. They're moving. And if you live in the city of Flint, I understand. I don't know if you reside in the city of Flint or not, but if you're in the city of Flint and you need help and you can't get through, you're hitting the floor and you're 81 years old, and it's happened more than once or twice or 3 times, they're leaving. And these are people who have homes are paid for. They don't want to move. They don't want to leave. So 911 response time. We got to work on, and not even work on it. I didn't even want to have this, I called Chief Green because I didn't want to have it in public, and I'm going to be honest with you. I called because it needs to be talked about. And it's something that's, you can't replace life, but what we can do is improve how we how we have officers to be called to the scenes. People was, saying, they came at the next morning for the bullet in the home. And this was a street over where they were just shooting, and they do it every weekend. Every weekend. Not just during the weekend, they party to 7 a.m. to the sun come up, and they don't care. Just rude. What are we putting in place for these?
Talking about the house on Sherwood?
Yes, because I've been there.
Yeah, well, we're dealing with it.
After the shooting, they didn't leave. They stayed in the cars and still partied. I don't like the fact that lawless people have a total disrespect for our police department. And that individual, he's not the only one. He has a total disrespect. They shot up, a bullet went through someone's house, and they still partied. They didn't disperse. They felt and knew no police would show up. And he was right that time. The neighbors were calling, the neighbors are upset. And it's not just, it's down the street, across the street, where it T-bones Bradley, Sherwood, and Crestwood. Because I've been there. You can hear that loudspeaker all the way down half past the block. And they park on people's grass and block their driveways. He is just completely lawless and does not care. And I get talking, with the system, with saying, there's certain steps. Stray bullets, we need to move a lot faster. My biggest issue is having an officer, when you call 911, available. When you call, you need help. How do we improve that? That's my biggest thing. And that would be a Chief Green answer. I know you work closely with him, but that is the biggest issue. And then I had talked to Michigan State Police, and they were stating they didn't get all of your stuff anymore. And so when gunshots go out, Michigan State, you had support. And I'll be honest, you need support nowadays. Like that one on Saginaw Street when the young man shot in front of, used to be Dewey School. You need all agencies now. And to not be able to see that.
What do you mean the state police weren't getting the information?
They said because you're not on the Tyler CAD system, and
it all gets aired out over the radio, and they monitor the same channel.
But they used to get so say the reports that come in, the reports that you get, your reports that come in, they would get a copy of that. Michigan State Police, they knew what was going on. They don't have, you're not on that system anymore for information sharing. You're not on it. And I think at $20,000 a year is what it was. The benefit to it, I would like to know for Chief Green for what was, the benefit. Because I can't imagine Michigan State Police, the Sheriff's Department, Flint Police, nobody could respond to gunshots.
It's all aired over the same channel.
Okay, but they don't.
If they're listening to the radio, they're going to hear it.
But that's not the others. Were you familiar with the Tyler CAD system?
Somewhat.
Okay, so
But that's not put out over the air for people to hear.
That is correct. It's not, and that's what I'm saying. That we're not on that system anymore. We have been taken off of that. So I think it's beneficial that we need to take another look at it, so that if we're saying, and I don't know how many cars, I don't want to put out there how many cars you got out there. I do know. But then we also have Michigan State Police with their shift, and then the Sheriff's Department. Somebody should be able to show up. If you're tied up at a scene in Flint Police, we should be able to say, okay, there's gunshots. We should be able to have the sheriffs. Technically, it used to be Michigan State Police showed up for that was the one call that they would take as gunshots. They don't answer 911 calls, but they would do gunshots. And not having gunshots, third life stabbing, that type of, they would show up for. I don't know if there's a breakdown now, but we need to fix that. That needs to be fixed. That really does.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Burns. We will circle back to you if you have more questions. Councilman in the First Ward.
Thank you. How you doing? I have some similar questions as my colleague just mentioned, Councilwoman Burns, in regards to the 911 system. Maybe like 10 days ago, I had a situation that happened to me, and it was hard to get any officers or anyone out to a commercial property that I own, and some things were stolen from it. And the residents went to calling me in the First Ward and so forth, so I got up there, called the police. No one showed up. This was the first day that I reported it. We talked over the phone. I was advised that someone would come. The second day, I talked to a few of my colleagues and then went back up to the same location, and we had to reach out to the chief, and he made sure someone came out. My problem with that is when someone, especially when the residents are working with us to fight crime and keep things down and no one's responding, they begin to lose trust. So we do have some issues going on with our 911 system, and it personally impacted me just recently. And then I had some issues going on at a couple of hot spots that I've been reporting for maybe for like the last month over in the First Ward at some of these the corner stores. You got the one right there on Carpenter and where the Music Planet is.
College?
Yeah, right there in College. And then we got the one on Fleming and Pearson Road. And late night, you know, and they should be closed. To my understanding, they stand open till like 2 in the morning. I think that's too late to have these stores open with a lot of crowds and things happening at that time. And then that's where a lot of the shootings, and I'm getting a lot of calls from residents really concerned about that. And I have yet to have a follow-up. I reached out to the state police, and I noticed that they started coming through these areas, but I feel like our local police should be also addressing that as well. So we do have some issues going on with the communication that I would definitely love to see if we can have some further conversation on that.
Okay.
And then my other question was in regards to, I know we got some grants that's supporting the police department and so forth, and I just wanted to get an update. Do you know exactly how many officers that we have on patrol right now?
It's right around 197 or so
97.
more.
9,700. Okay, and then under like some of these grants, and I apologize, I wasn't at the last budget meeting myself. So like, how long is the grant, one of the recent grants that I know that got approved to support our police department? Do you know how long, or Mr. Moore, how long that grant is gonna last?
Are you referring to the COPS grant?
Yes, the COPS grant.
I'm not sure, maybe 3 years?
Yeah, the COPS grants usually last 3 years, and then we usually have a commitment for 1 year after.
So 3 years and then 1 year after. Do you know who's administering that grant?
I'm not sure who I don't know if
You mean as far as like Chief Green or somebody through finance or?
I mean,
the different
just
roles
who
in the-
oversees that grant to make sure the management of funds and things is going where.
the accounting would probably be done by the finance department. We have one person that takes care of the grant management. And if you're talking about the administrative part of actually making sure that the grant gets done, that would probably be Chief Green.
All right, thank you. That's all I have for now.
All right, thank you. Did you have any questions? All right, I want to go back to this COPS grant really quickly. Do we have the award amount for that grant?
I don't have it here, but I can get that for you. That's
All right, can you tell me the guideline uses for the grant?
I can't know.
What is it being used for?
I can't answer that either.
Mr. Moore, do you have the remaining balance for the grant?
I haven't done anything with the COPS Fast grant.
All righty.
Sure.
I mean, I have more questions, but I understand I will not get answers.
If you have questions related to the COPS Fast grant for just send them to me and we'll get the information for you.
Will do. And now we're circling back. Councilwoman Burns, did you have any more questions? All right. You got another 15 minutes. Have at it.
Okay. The LOU. The MOU was changed for emergency management in 2015. Then Chief Green did a LOU, Memorandum of Understanding. Then it was a letter of understanding that Chief Green, some of the things I know he didn't know, like, because there was another, like what the police department didn't respond to. We need to take a look at the MOU and LOU and update it. Because that would be the same what Councilman Al-Alamin's issue is. You don't respond to it, so 911 doesn't dispatch it because it's on the list. So you wouldn't have gotten a response, Councilman, because it's not something that the police department responds to, because you're streamlining they were streamlining to make the more important calls like gunshots, stabbings, those types of calls would take precedence. But we need to update the LOU to the 911 center, because a lot of the calls, I think frustration with some of the residents, you can make these complaints through the TRU system when you call in, but then you don't get the response. I think we grew up in the era, you called the police, they showed up for everything. And I think that's, you know, when you call 911, you know, people have the expectation, you know, police show up. We do not, we have 71 things that the police do not show up for, which is in the LOU. It will tell you, or should I tell you, it will tell you how. Let me retract that. It'll tell you in these 71, it's 85, maybe more than that, it's 83. And some of the things will tell you, like, if the person is gone, it's not a threat anymore, you need to file, you know, like online. And I don't think there's a disconnect from the 911 center and residents, that when they call in, you know, that call goes in, it goes out on the radio, people are waiting for someone to show up and they don't. And it's often a call that you don't respond to. For instance, Rite Aid, they will walk out of Rite Aid with a case of beer, everything they wanted, on Ballinger and Flushing, and they did it all the time. And one of the big issues was nobody would show up. Why? It was part of the LOU, the letter of understanding, that police didn't respond. Rite Aid, their claim was there was so much theft they had to close out those businesses that they had too much theft. But then again, you look at it, Rite Aid, there was theft, but then Rite Aid had some other issues, just like Walgreens. But to see there and to have the workers rendered useless, but people would walk in and then they would sell it across the street. I mean, they were literally it's now the slider, or it was the Tim Hortons, they would sell it. And they didn't stop. So the threat of the police, how do we get the police department to be more seen in the community, more visible in the community, to where people understand, I understand the community policing, to where people say, you know, we have police. You know, how do we get the threat of all these acts to where they just don't care? It's like you live in the city of Flint, people just get tired. And I'm seeing people walk away. Mrs. Humphrey sold her house, put up for sale last week, sold it the first week, in-ground pool, nice home, retired principal, had, you know, and she left because it was because of the crime. It was the crime. And we need good residents to stay and to not leave, because one, she never get hurt. She gave the police the license plate number. She gave the address where someone brandished a gun on her husband's way home from Kettering. And she felt nothing was done. We're making residents feel hopeless. And that's not a good feeling or space to be in. I know you're overworked. I know that in the township, you may take 3 or 4 calls per evening, if that. In Flint, you're getting 20. Or what is the average? Because I know I was told you were getting about anywhere from 17 to 20. What is the average call an officer gets?
I would say 20, 25.
20, yeah. And you're running from scene to scene. And so I have a lot of, I understand it, but it's like, how do we fix it? You know, I always tell people call 911 because that creates a record, and a legal record. And then I get all kind of, you know, they don't care. You know, nothing's gonna be done. No one ever shows up. I get that a lot. And I'm rooting for you. Whatever you come up, or Chief Green says he wants to do, I support his programming. I want our community to be safe. I want people to respect our police department. And I think you did a very good job being nice to that gentleman, because I know some other officers wouldn't have been at all. As disrespectful as I commend you on that one, because there's some other ones, he would have had probably some problems, because he's rude. You know, he wanted to play that game. I mean, they know how to do it legally to you know, look, you want to disturb the entire neighborhood, we'll just sit in front of your house maybe. You know, or if people call in to keep showing up. We got to quit letting the lawless people take over. And that has to be a messaging that has to be conveyed, because right now, they're taking over. But that LOU, I would like for Chief Green to revisit that, because that way Councilman El Alamin would understood that that's not a call that they would have come out to. He would have had to have did it on the TRU system or to do it online at CopLogic. What is your average response time?
I'd say around 4 minutes.
4 minutes. And so the city is broken into quadrants. I know we used to have the person at Mott Park, and I think all of those 4 officers. I know he's got some new programming coming up that he's implementing. And see, it's hard to ask you because a lot of this is his projects, and it's really not fair to you. I know he's switching out some things and adding them. I would like to know, like I say, his implementation time. That to me is something that it's important. And his summer, well, I'm not gonna say summer, spring program. How many homicides or how many shootings have we had, do you know, year to date?
Non-fatal?
None, well, yeah, we do have to break it down.
I believe it was 42.
42 non-fatals?
Yeah, last Wednesday at our last day of meeting.
And then how many fatals have we had?
I think there's been 12 homicides.
Okay, and so that is a decrease. And, I remember we were having like a shooting a day for a while during COVID. I mean, there was literally, they weren't good targets, thank God. The gun buyback program, do you think it was effective
I don't have enough information
to give that back?
give an opinion on that.
The gun safety locks that you do have, I need to contact the chief. There are people who did contact me to get some of those. That is something, and then I had actually a company who said they would donate them, but I know the police department, because gun safety we need to talk about in our community. I mean, these people will yield guns, guns are prevalent, and gun safety is not talked about. I believe in the right to carry, but you have to be safe with your weapon. And firearm safety, they just have guns. Have you seen a decrease in what they call, like, I believe, straw guns, where people are buying guns, giving them to their relatives? I know that was an issue. And then also with them buying guns online, where you buy different pieces and you put them together and you, voila, I have a gun. Has that decreased it, or in illegal guns that you're seeing, or?
I wouldn't say a decrease.
Okay. Yeah, and it seems to be a issue that you see quite often. I will save my other questions. Oh, no, I want to talk about community policing. Let's get on something happy. What are some of the programs that you have for the PAL program?
That's Chief Green, baby.
That's okay, and I support his PAL program. Were you about to say something?
No.
Okay, so I support that program because I think we need to see, young people need to see in uniform and officers supporting children so they become familiar, and maybe they can grow up to want to, be an officer, one day. I wish he was here because these are questions that he that pertain to him, and especially with his programs that he's implementing. Is there a reason why Chief Green is not here?
He asked me to set this place.
Okay. He didn't send any of the other department heads either that were here before. I think he had Sergeant Booth, Sergeant Detective Booth.
Detective Booth had something come up and he couldn't make it.
Okay, he had, for hiring questions, he had Lieutenant Dixon. And then he had, he was on the other end. Urquhart, yep, thank you. Captain Urquhart. And so I wish, because after this last weekend, how many shootings did we have this weekend?
I don't know.
How many are each shift you're coming in that you're not clearing that board? Is it over 50?
I'm sorry?
How many, when each shift is coming in, how many calls are not cleared? Are you 100 calls behind, 50 calls behind? What's like an average?
It varies.
It varies. Because I know the average had been a little over 50 when they're in there trying to get those calls cleared, calls cleared down. Also, I need to, who is handling, because someone had a whole party in the church parking lot at St. Mark's. They did everything in that parking lot that the church preached against. And the signs, I think I need to call Sergeant Booth about that, so they can put up a no loitering sign. And I did tell the pastor and the deacons that they need to contact the police department, because in order for you to remove people off the property, you need to have that no loitering sign. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Also, the store, it's on Flushing Road. I think it's the K something store. There's loitering. It's loitering. And we have had a homicide there before, where someone came out the store, they knew who they were, they shot them in the parking lot dead. And they're sitting in that parking lot on Flushing Road, and the condos right across the street are residents who have been there. One is, she used to be a prosecutor, and then one serves on the board. They hear all that noise. And so in that store, and I talked to the store owner, they sit in that parking lot and they just party. They party in the park, and the owner has, he does have the signs posted, but when he calls to get that cleared out, he's like, Tanya, they won't do anything. I can't get an officer. I mean, I like being, I know officers are busy. I know when we had Mott Park, but I would, instead of sitting, I like to see them riding by. Let's go in, talk to the store owners, that community policing, because they're sitting in that parking lot, and I'm telling you, something's going to happen. It's just like the party house. Something's going to happen. And so we could get, stop that loitering at the stores. And I don't know what more, because a lot of the places have even gotten the green light to where they, it used to be what do you call the system now?
Sorry?
The video system. It used to be cat eye. What do you,
What you talking about?
where the intel room, what do you call the system that you call it, where the businesses are connected?
Just security cameras.
You just call it it used to have the cat eye name, I believe. It's the name that it has, so it doesn't bear a name anymore?
Nothing I'm aware of.
Okay. So is there a number, if residents, if I'm a business owner, I need to call because I can't get people off my property, I have the loitering sign, who do I call?
911.
Okay, and if 911 has not been showing up when it goes, because it goes out as an all call, is that correct?
It goes out what?
It's an all call, it goes out over the system for everyone, right?
On the city?
Yep.
Yes.
And so if no one's responding, because that's what they're getting,
Tell them to call again.
tell them, okay, tell them to call again. Okay, so tell them to keep calling.
Yes.
So those are some of the areas they're concerned about, that I'm concerned about the store. And I stop in there to speak with the owner. I tell him to keep his lot clean, and if there's anything I can help him with, and he needs the police to help him with keeping those people out of that lot, and the vacant lot next door to him, to where they just park in there. They just park in there and party. And when people congregate like that, it tends to be a problem. So I'm gonna sum mine up with, if we can look at the LOU, the emergency management did a new MOU in 2015, but that LOU in 2020, I think we need to take another look at that one. And then also, if, you know, the benefit of that CAD system, we're not sharing information, and that's one of the things gunshots should be somebody show up. They don't care if it's the MSP, the Sheriff's Department, or Flint PD. They want someone to show up. I'm done, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Did anyone else have any more follow-up questions? You have the floor.
So, I heard a question around the COPS grant, and I understand we may not have details in the room here now. But was that a grant that has been utilized in 23-24, or is that a grant that will be initiated come July 1 of 24?
I think it's been used quite a bit in the past.
It has, we have been, go ahead, I'm sorry.
COPS Fast Grant has been around for some time. I don't know when the city of Flint first started using it, but I'm sure the city's been using it for at least 10 years.
Okay. And again, please help to educate me, because again, first meeting, first budget thing, and especially looking at this budget for the first time here now. Can you help me identify where on this packet I would see that grant?
It would probably be under grants.
I'm not sure that I can, but I can definitely find out the answer for that, because I haven't focused on the COPS Fast Grant just because I'm relatively new too. But I know it's in there, because I know I've heard people talking about it.
So if I may, I did send you an email. I included the city clerk, and the reason I included the city clerk is so that she could share the information to all 9 council members once you look into that grant. Some of the questions I did ask about the grant is when it was awarded, how much funding is left in that grant, how many police officers, if any, are under that grant, who's responsible for the administering question that he asked, who's responsible for renewal of that grant. So those are some of the questions that were asked. So if we could just get a full breakdown of that grant, that would be perfect. And again, I included the city clerk so that all 9 of us could receive that information. I'll give you the floor back.
That makes sense. We can do that.
Okay. And then could you help me understand sort of the process to get to this? Who does what part? How does it flow up through to what?
The city has a decentralized budget process where each department prepares their own budget request. That works its way up. Finance department reviews it. We review different things. There's some things that we discover that 2 departments are proposing the same thing, or maybe something doesn't fit within the budget. But for the most part, I think the police budget got almost everything you requested. There may have been a couple minor things that got eliminated, but there wasn't anything major. The big thing that we did do with the police budget this year is that in prior years, the police department had, I don't know, maybe 10 different cost centers, and that made it very difficult to administer it. So we've consolidated that into one cost center that's easier to review, it's easier to find things. It also reduces the overhead for the police department. In the past, when they would prepare a purchase order for office supplies, they'd prepare one for each cost center. Now we can just have one, which I know Candace really appreciates that. But for the most part, the police department got just about everything they requested.
Okay. So for the not just the police department, for all the different departments, I'm understanding then that the department head creates.
They create the initial one, we review it, and there's a bit of a negotiation process. We try to make sure that 2 departments aren't asking for the same thing. At the same time, we also review it to make sure that nothing's been forgotten. You know, it's easy to forget some. To be quite honest, I think the finance department adds more money in than we subtract out because it's easy to forget things, and we make sure everything is in there. You know, if we have a debt service payment, we make sure it's included. If we have an insurance program, we make sure it's in there. It goes, the department looks at it first, we review it, and then we send it back to the department. They review it again. And usually that's where it ends. Every once in a while, there'll be another round back and forth. It just depends on the department.
Okay. So, to you also, welcome to this City of Flint budgetary process. You and I are sort of
I'm
going
new.
through
This is
some
my
of this.
first budget process for the City of Flint. I have tried to make a few changes to it. I've wanted to make it so that we've had a more consistent way of doing it. I'm a big believer that we should budget according to GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. I'm a big believer that we should plan for the long term, and that's part I'm still working on. I like to get more long-term capital planning working. When Tyler was here, we were, before the meeting, we were talking about they're working on the capital improvement program for the city. And the finance wants to be actively engaged, because if you want to do something big for the city, you can't do it next year. You have to plan for it. You have to find your funding sources, and that can take you 4 or 5 years to reach that. But you have to start with all the players in the room working together for the same goals. So we're trying to, that part will probably be in next year's budget.
Okay. And I know just this afternoon, it was just the 2 departments. To the best of your, I guess I'll say, knowledge at this point, planning has identified some opportunities to collect,
Right.
if not, collect some fees that might be going uncollected currently. Have you identified as CFO some opportunities throughout the entire,
We have what's called the master fee schedule, and that will be working its way to the city council, I believe, either this week or next week. I'm not sure how that process works. Every department looks at all their, the fees that they charge every year, and we review that, and then the city council adopts that every spring.
How difficult, and I may be giving you an out in phrasing it that way, but how difficult is it for there to be a report that's generated that might say, year to date, per fee category, we've collected this number of dollars?
It's not terribly difficult. We can do it. I think if the council wanted that on a regular basis, I'd want to think about it, because I'd want to make it sure that we're doing something on a consistent basis month after month. And I'd also like to make it so it's pretty well automated, so that we don't have to think about it. It just comes out. And I think it's doable. The question apart becomes is how much detail do we keep? And the city of Flint has a lot of account numbers. And I suspect from the elected officials' perspective, we probably have more than enough for your review, unless there's a particular one that is consolidated with something else.
Okay. And is this the only time that we really get any kind of numbers as far as where we are and what we have
About once a
going?
month, I'll send Davina a report where the city is in terms of its budget.
Okay. You say monthly?
I haven't done it this month, and I'm late
Okay.
for that, but I will get that out before the week's done.
Thank you. Thank you, I'm good.
Well, thank you. Thank you both so much for your time. This actually concludes our budget hearings. You made it through, Mr. Moore. All of the regular budget hearings and all of the callbacks. Thank you so much, Deputy Chief, for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
The budget hearings are officially